The fear that chains you, the whisper of doubt. Have you ever felt like the world around you was too loud, while you were too quiet? Like everyone else carried some natural confidence, allowing them to move freely, speak effortlessly, and exist without hesitation? And you stand on the sidelines, knowing you have something to say, yet something inside holds you back. This isn't just shyness. This is a cage, one you've been living in for years. But where did these chains come from? You weren't born shy. You weren't born afraid to speak. Look at children. They scream, they laugh, they demand attention without shame. But somewhere along the way, you learned to be afraid. Maybe in school, you said something wrong, and they laughed at you. Maybe you tried to approach someone, but you felt unwelcome. Maybe your parents or teachers said, "Don't be too loud. Don't attract attention. Know your place." And now you are here, silent when you want to speak, hiding when you want to be seen. But who told you this was the right way to live? The fear that owns you, shyness, isn't just a personality trait. It is a defense mechanism, your brain's way of keeping you safe. Your fear of speaking up isn't irrational. It's your brain saying, "Stay silent. Don't risk rejection." But rejection isn't fatal. You're not in prehistoric times where being cast out of the tribe meant death. Yet your brain still reacts as if it is. And the more you listen to that fear, the stronger it grows. Shyness feeds on avoidance. You avoid speaking, your fear grows. Your fear grows, it becomes even harder to speak. You convince yourself, "This is just who I am." But that's a lie. You are not an introvert by nature. You were not born invisible. You simply trained fear instead of confidence. Jordan Peterson on fear and confidence. Jordan Peterson doesn't just say be confident. He says, develop the strength to fight back. And it starts with your posture. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. This isn't just about your back. It's about your psychology. When you slouch, you signal defeat. When you avoid eye contact, you place yourself below others. When you speak softly, you apologize for your own existence. But if you stand tall, if your chest opens, if you meet the world head-on, the fear begins to shrink. The subtle war for power. Most people don't even realize how much power exists in small, subconscious details. When you walk into a room, your posture dictates how people perceive you. If you shrink yourself, they ignore you. If you own the space, they acknowledge you. This isn't arrogance. This is biology. Confidence isn't a trick. It's a threat display, not of violence, but of self-respect. You've seen it before. The person who walks into a room and everyone turns to look. The speaker whose voice commands attention without shouting. The one who says little, yet their words carry weight. Why? Because they have trained presence. And presence starts with breaking fear in small ways. How to escape the cage of fear? You can't just turn on confidence. You must earn it. 1. Fix your posture. Notice how you stand, how you sit, how you hold yourself. 2. Increase your volume. Speak 10% louder than what feels natural. 3. Eye contact. Don't break it first. Train yourself to hold steady. 4. Micro confrontations. Say something when you normally wouldn't. Give your opinion. Ask a question. Speak up. Each time you push past fear, it weakens. Each time you avoid it, it grows stronger. You were not meant to hide fear. Doesn't disappear overnight. But piece by piece, you can break it down. And when it finally shatters, what's left? A version of you that was always there, waiting to be set free. Fear never leaves. Unless you chase it down the illusion of escape, you think you've escaped it. You stand taller. You speak a little louder. You meet someone's eyes and hold their gaze for half a second longer than before. For a brief moment, it feels like progress. And then it comes back, stronger, louder. That whisper in your mind turns into a roar. Who do you think you are? You're not that kind of person. People will see right through you. Fear isn't just a shadow that follows you. It's a predator. And when you try to run, it doesn't disappear, it hunts you down. You've felt this before. Maybe you tried speaking up, only to feel a wave of shame afterward. Maybe you made eye contact with someone, but instead of confidence, you felt exposed. Maybe you pushed yourself forward, only for your mind to scream, "That was wrong, go back." This is why most people never change. Because when fear pushes back, they retreat. And every time you retreat, the cage closes tighter. Why fear fights back harder than before? Fear isn't a passive thing. It's not just sitting inside you, waiting to fade away. It's alive. And the moment you step outside of its control, it panics. Because if you prove, even once, that you don't need to listen to it, it dies. And that's the one thing it cannot allow. That's why when you finally start fighting back, fear doesn't just sit still. It attacks harder. It makes you second-guess everything. It pulls your worst memories to the surface. It makes sure that even your small victories feel like mistakes. Because it knows, if it can make you doubt yourself, even for a second, you will run back to safety. The biggest lie fear tells you here's the trap that keeps people stuck for years. Fear convinces you that discomfort equals danger. That the rapid heartbeat, the sweaty palms, the shaky voice, all of it means something is wrong. But discomfort isn't danger. It's proof that you're on the right path. Because if you weren't growing, you wouldn't feel anything at all. You need to stop treating fear like a warning sign. It's not. It's an invitation. And you only have two choices. 1, turn back, stay comfortable, stay safe, stay small. 2, run straight at it, chase it down, corner it, and watch it shatter. How to kill fear before it grows stronger. Most people try to build confidence first. That's a mistake. Because confidence doesn't create action. Action creates confidence. Here's how you destroy fear before it takes control again. 1, say yes before you feel ready. If you wait to feel confident, you will never act. Speak before your mind has time to overthink. Walk up to the person before your body hesitates. Raise your hand in the meeting before fear pulls it down. Your brain will try to stop you. Do it anyway. 2, deliberately seek out discomfort. Your body treats fear like a threat. You have to train it to see fear as a challenge instead. If public speaking scares you, speak up in small ways every day. If eye contact is uncomfortable, hold it for 1 second longer each time. If social situations make you anxious, deliberately stay in them longer. Fear only owns what you avoid. 3, keep a fear journal. Write down every time fear stops you from doing something. Every excuse your brain uses to hold you back. Every moment you ignored fear and did it anyway. This forces your mind to see the pattern. The point of no return right now. Fear is hoping you'll do what you've always done. That you'll take this information, feel inspired for a few minutes, and then go back to normal. Because if you do nothing, fear wins. But if you act, if you break the pattern today, not tomorrow, fear won't just weaken. It will realize something terrifying. It is no longer in control. And in part 3, fear won't give up that easily. It has one last trick left, the illusion of self-sabotage. Most people don't see it coming, and that's why they never escape. Part 3, the final trick. When fear becomes you, the trap you never see coming. You've done everything right. You stood taller. You spoke louder. You forced yourself into uncomfortable situations. And for a while it worked. You felt the chains loosen. You felt yourself breaking free. You felt powerful. But then, it happened. A mistake. A failure. A moment where everything collapsed. Maybe you spoke up, and your voice shook. Maybe you made eye contact, but it felt forced. Maybe you stepped forward, but the world didn't react the way you hoped. And in that moment, something dark slipped back in. Not as fear, as logic. Maybe I was being too ambitious. Maybe I'm not ready for this after all. Maybe some people just aren't meant to be confident. You don't even realize what's happening. Because this time, fear isn't attacking you. It's comforting you. This is the final trick. And if you don't see it for what it is, you will fall back into the cage you thought you escaped. The cycle of self-sabotage. Fear doesn't care if you take a few steps forward. It only cares about one thing, that you come back. And the easiest way to do that, let you fail, then make you believe it was proof you should never have tried. This is why so many people start to change, only to return to their old habits. This is why so many people almost escape, only to lock themselves in again. Because fear doesn't always need to stop you. Sometimes it just needs you to convince yourself to stop. The illusion of who you are. Here's the biggest lie fear tells you. That it's not fear at all. That it's just who you are. I'm just naturally quiet. I've always been bad in social situations. I'm just not one of those confident people. But let's ask a dangerous question. What if that's not true? What if your entire identity, everything you believe about yourself, was shaped by fear? What if the only reason you think you're bad at conversations is because you've avoided them your whole life? What if the only reason you think you're socially awkward is because fear made sure you never practiced? What if the only reason you believe you're an introvert is because fear forced you to be one? You aren't naturally quiet. You were trained to be quiet. You aren't socially weak. You just never built the strength. And now, here's the question that changes everything. If fear shaped you into who you are now, then who could you become without it? The dangerous act of rewriting yourself, the most terrifying thing you can do. Become something your past self wouldn't recognize. Why? Because once you prove that you were never actually shy, never actually weak, never actually broken. You can never go back. Fear wants you to fail because failure means you stay the same. But if you refuse to stop, if you fail and keep going anyway, something else happens. Fear doesn't just weaken. It stops recognizing you. How to kill the final trick. Fear has one last strategy. It waits until you're exhausted. It waits for a bad day, a moment of weakness. Then it whispers, "Wouldn't it be easier to go back?" And that's when you must do what fear never expects. 1. Burn the bridges back. If you fear social situations, deliberately put yourself in more. If you fear speaking up, force yourself to talk every day. If you feel like retreating, create a world where retreat is no longer an option. The moment you force yourself to live as a different person, your old self dies. 2. Find a new fear. You will always be afraid of something. If you're not afraid of failure, you will be afraid of success. If you're not afraid of being seen, you will be afraid of being invisible. So choose your fear. Fear staying the same. Fear wasting your life. Fear looking back in 10 years and realizing you never truly lived. 3. Become the person fear can't control. Fear only works when it has power over you. If you run from it, it chases you. If you freeze, it suffocates you. But if you turn and laugh in its face, it breaks. This is why the strongest people aren't unafraid. They are simply the ones who fear nothing more than regret. The final step, no way back. You are standing at the point of no return. You've seen the tricks. You know how fear works. You know how it owns you. Now the only question left is, what are you going to do about it? In part 4, fear isn't done yet. It has one last weapon, and if you don't see it coming, it will take everything from you. This is the moment most people fail, and they never understand why. Part 4. The last weapon. When fear becomes comfort, the most dangerous moment. You think fear is your enemy. That it's something outside of you, something to fight, something to overcome. But now you're starting to understand. Fear is smart. And when it realizes that it can't scare you anymore, when it sees you pushing forward despite it, it changes. It stops feeling like terror. It stops feeling like panic. And instead, it becomes comfort. This is the final trick. And if you don't see it coming, it will destroy everything you've built. The trap of good enough. You started this journey because you wanted to change. You wanted to stop hiding. Stop holding yourself back. Stop being trapped by fear. And at first, you fought for it. You stood taller. You spoke louder. You put yourself into situations that terrified you. And then something happened. You made just enough progress to feel better than before. You're not as socially awkward as you were. You're not as silent in conversations. You can handle being seen a little more. And your brain whispers, "That's enough. You don't need to go further. You don't need to become fully confident. You don't need to keep pushing. You've escaped the worst of it." And this is where 99% of people stop. Not because they failed, but because they settled. The subtle death of progress. You know what happens next. You stop challenging yourself. You stop forcing yourself into uncomfortable situations. You stop growing. And at first, it feels fine. You don't feel scared anymore. You don't feel overwhelmed. You don't feel anxious. But then something worse happens. You don't feel alive either. Because deep down, you could have gone further. You could have become something greater. You could have taken the next step. But you didn't. And that is where fear truly wins. Why this happens to everyone. The human brain isn't designed for greatness. It's designed for survival. Your brain doesn't care if you reach your full potential. It only cares that you feel safe. And safety doesn't come from growth. It comes from staying the same. This is why people sabotage themselves. It's why successful people suddenly lose motivation. It's why people who lose weight end up gaining it back. It's why people who improve their social skills slowly retreat into silence again. Not because they failed, but because they stopped at good enough. And if you stop here, you might as well have never started. The answer to the biggest question. How do you make sure you never stop? This is the only question that matters now. Not how to start, not how to overcome fear, not how to break old patterns, but how to keep going forever. Because confidence isn't something you reach. It's something you maintain or lose. And the moment you stop chasing it, the moment you stop pushing, fear will take back everything you fought for. So how do you make sure this never happens? You must replace fear with something stronger. 1. Build an identity that doesn't allow you to stop. People who stay confident, who stay growing, don't rely on motivation. They build a new identity, one that makes stopping impossible. A runner doesn't need to get motivated to run. They just do. A leader doesn't try to be confident. They just are. A fighter doesn't hope, they'll keep pushing. It's in their blood. This is the level you must reach. 2. Fear comfort more than you fear failure. Most people fear embarrassment. They fear rejection. They fear looking stupid. But those things don't kill you. What kills you? Comfort, stagnation, the slow decay of potential. So you must make this your greatest fear. The fear of waking up in 10 years and realizing you never truly lived. 3. Always have a bigger mountain to climb. If you don't set new goals, you will sink. If you've conquered social anxiety, now conquer public speaking. If you've become confident in small groups, now dominate larger ones. If you've gained control over your presence, now command the room. The second you feel safe, raise the bar. The final decision, no way back. You started this journey because something inside you refused to accept a small life. Now you have a choice. Stop here. Live a life that is better than before, but still not what it could have been. Or never stop. Keep pushing. Keep growing. Become something fear can no longer control. Because the truth is, you were never meant to be ordinary. You've broken free. You understand the game. But what now? Most people fear failure. But the ones who make it fear something else entirely. And if you don't understand this last truth, you will lose everything. The final war, becoming untouchable. The last thing fear doesn't want you to know you've done it. You've walked through fire. You've broken the chains. You've escaped the illusion of fear. But now something feels off. You expected a finish line. A final moment where everything would click and you'd finally feel invincible. But instead, something terrifying happens. You realize there is no end. And that's when fear whispers one last time. If there's no end, what's the point? This is the moment that decides everything. Because most people will make the wrong choice. They will go back. Not because they're weak. Not because they failed. But because they thought they were done. And you are about to face the greatest question of your life. What happens after fear is gone? The death of who you were your entire life. Fear has been your prison. But a prison is still a home if you've lived in it long enough. It gave you an excuse. It gave you an identity. It kept you safe. And now you are free. And freedom is terrifying. Most people never reach this point. Because breaking fear was never the real battle. The real battle is who you become afterward. Because now you can no longer say, I can't. I don't know how. I'm just not that type of person. Fear is gone. Which means, if you stop moving forward now, there is no one to blame but yourself. Why most people are afraid of their own power, here's the secret nobody tells you. Most people aren't afraid of failure. They're afraid of power. Because power means responsibility. When you have power, you can no longer say, if only I were more confident. If only I weren't so shy. If only I wasn't afraid. You don't have that excuse anymore. And now you have to choose. The two paths, and the one that leads to greatness from this moment on. You have two choices. 1, you can become ordinary again. You can say, I've done enough. You can stop here, settle into a better life than before, and let your past self be proud. You can live comfortably, and you will slowly fade. 2, you can become something fear will never touch again. You can reject comfort forever. You can burn your old self to the ground and rebuild from the ashes. You can make growth your new home, not fear. This is the path of the few. The ones who don't just escape fear, they erase it. The ones who don't just want confidence, they demand power. And the ones who choose this path, they never stop. How to become truly untouchable? There is one final truth you must accept. Confidence is not a place you reach. It is a place you fight for every single day. The moment you stop pushing, the moment you stop forcing growth, fear will find its way back in. And when it returns, it won't come as panic. It will come as laziness. It will come as excuses. It will come as I deserve a break. And when that moment comes, you must crush it. Because there is no final victory. There is only the choice to keep going. So how do you become someone fear will never control again? 1, make growth your religion. You must never say, I'm done improving. You thought social confidence was the goal. Now build influence. You thought being less shy was the goal. Now become a leader. You thought overcoming fear was the goal. Now become the fear of others. The world belongs to those who keep evolving. 2, fear nothing except a life half lived. If you still fear failure, rejection, or embarrassment, then you don't fear the right thing. Fear staying the same. Fear waking up in 20 years and realizing you never reached your potential. Fear becoming just another person who had potential but wasted it. That is the only fear worth listening to. 3, destroy the comfort that tries to kill you the second you feel safe, the second you feel comfortable. Do something that terrifies you. Make risk a habit. Make danger your ally. Make discomfort the only thing that feels like home. The final truth, and the last question that decides everything you now understand what few people ever realize. There is no final battle, only the war you must fight every day. So now, the only question left is this: who will you be from this moment forward? Because fear is watching, waiting for you to make one final mistake, waiting for you to choose comfort over greatness. So what will you do? Step forward, or let fear win in the end?